All right, everyone, I guess we can get started. Thank you all for being here, and welcome to I Spy with my hacker eye, how hackers use public info to crack your creds. My name is Destiny Plaza. I am a cybersecurity engineer at Carnegie Mellon University. I work at a lab there called the Software Engineering Institute. My hometown is Buffalo, New York, where I was able to get my Bachelor of Science and Master's of Science, and my undergrad being here at Canisius, so it's really great to be back. At my job, I lead a lot of projects that automate certain processes in the cybersecurity space. And I love automation, but unfortunately, so do bad actors. There are instances, however, that they do take their time to look at some of the information that you post publicly online. And when they do so, they're able to tailor existing tools to target you. So you may ask me, well, what exactly do they want from me? Well, they want your credentials. So I want you to get a general idea of the amount of publicly available electronic information, also known as PAEI, a very well-known term in the intelligence community. I pulled up some stats when I was composing this presentation. The first stat I want you to look at is there are 500 million tweets per day. Wow, that's a lot of information. The second stat is that our 2.9 billion monthly active Facebook users. Note that key term, active, actively engaging, actively posting. A lot of information out there. And lastly, there are roughly 900 million LinkedIn members. As you know, as you're composing your LinkedIn profile, it certainly does ask for a lot of information. Interestingly enough, that all of this content that we tend to release using our social media produces a pattern. We, as humans, by nature, all have a pattern. And if noticed by the wrong set of eyes, a bad actor, well, they can certainly leverage it to crack your credentials. The number one sought-off data type by bad actors, according to the Verizon Data Breach Report from 2021, are passwords. And the number two is your personal data. Wow, that's scary. And one way, and certainly not the only way, is what you publicly share on social media, which allows them to gather this information. In this talk, I want to go through over common things people do to help hackers crack your credentials. 5 steps to crack passwords, so we can understand that workflow and know how to crack passwords ourselves, which will be pretty cool. We'll go through a very demo attack scenario once we learn how to crack passwords, just to see how it would be implemented. Again, very basic. And lastly, 5 ways to protect yourself. So let's get started with common things that people do. On the slide here, you'll see a list of common passwords. And this is actually true. Half of my team is composed of penetration testers, and these are the passwords that they tell me that they see in the wild all the time, which is sad. My favorite one, obviously, is having the password, because why not, right? Another password to note here is the QWERTY. It looks pretty random to the human eye, but glance down at your keyboard and you see those are keys all next to each other. And of course, if you have your username admin, your password obviously must be admin, cannot miss that. I actually had a family friend that I had to help because I realized that their router configurations, their default credentials, was admin. They were complaining to me that they continued to get a lot of notices from their service provider of exceeding their bandwidth and constantly getting knocked off the network. Well, I wonder why. So I was able to help them, and they're a lot better condition now, thankfully. other things that common people do is that they use identifiable information. Do you recall that we all have a pattern, and unfortunately we incorporate that pattern when we think of this very unique and strong and complex password. Also, we tend to reuse passwords. There's a survey from the Digital Guardian that mentioned about 50% of the participants reused passwords. Wow. So, for instance, I have a new puppy. Her name is Lucy, and I love her so much, I just have to post her on Instagram. It's a must. Posted, public, need everyone to see it, please like. And as I think of my password, well, you know what, for Twitter, I think I love Lucy's. It's a great password. I'll definitely not forget that one. And you know what, for the heck of it, why in the world would I generate a new password? Use the same one for my LinkedIn as well. And just to make sure that I don't forget, must put it on a sticky note. That's just a must. I will never forget my password. I love Lucy. You know, passwords on sticky notes are quite prevalent, and you may ask me, what is the big deal about that? Well, please bring your eyes to this sticky note. If you're familiar with at all the Hawaii missile incident where there was a false alert that really scared the population, there's a little bit of debate about it, but a lot of people say that it has to do with this sticky note. So someone was able to take a photo of someone, one of the staff members, in front of their machines, and the sticky note was right behind them. I have seen people online where they take photos of their living room and bam, their Wi-Fi password is right there. Obviously anyone can rent one of those famous hacker vans, roll up to the corner and have at it with their Wi-Fi, right? But it may not be that case. Maybe it's your neighbor. You never know. You never know who's a hacker. It could be people like me and you. I don't know if we have a black hat hacker in sight. So this does happen a lot, and it's really important to realize why we shouldn't write passwords down. Another instance to think about when you write passwords down, you'll say, well, no one will see this. Obviously, I'll never take a selfie. I'm not about that life. But if you happen to throw this password out in the trash, if you have a notebook with passwords in them, once you put that trash out, it is public for everyone to see. There is a form of attack called dumpster diving, if you're not familiar with it, where people truly dedicate their time to go to different businesses or even target your home to look at your dumpster, because a lot of people are able to find juicy information on the things that you have tossed out, which you have deemed garbage, but for them extremely valuable. A credential may be in that dumpster, so definitely steer away from writing them down. We'll change gears now that we've talked so much about passwords, and we'll look at, well, how do you crack them? So I'm super excited to go through these 5 steps to crack passwords. On your marks, get set, stop. It's really important to make sure that you have the proper authorization before you proceed. We want to make sure that we're ethical in all we do, and performing any type of attack on someone is illegal if you don't have permission. Even if it is a system. I know systems are not humans, they don't have feelings, but it's illegal if you don't have the permission to do so. But let's get started, because you know what? I have permission for this demonstration. And step 1, the Kali box. This is free, open source, made for penetration testers, security researchers, and guess what? Curious people like us. What I really love about Kali is that it has over 100 pre-built tools ready to go for us to use, and the category of tools that I'm extremely interested in are password crackers. So I'm super excited to use the Kali box. Step 2 is to have a password list. You'll ask me, well, where can I even get one of these? Well, remember that Kali box? Well, golly gee, it's full of password lists as well. So you can definitely find your password list on Kali. You can also find them on GitHub, or even generate your own For the purposes of this demonstration, we'll be using rocku.txt. Now we'll head over to step 3, and that is the password cracking tool itself. We'll be using John the Ripper. It's really important to know 2 little details I wanted to call out here, that John the Ripper is really fantastic at cracking passwords, less than 8 characters, but it can crack more than 8 characters, and it was primarily built for CPU but can also be used with GPU. There are 2 versions. There's the Pro and the Community version, and the one that we'll be using is the Community version, which I think it's pretty good as is. Alright, step 4. And that is to identify your targets. You need to identify and locate what you're going to crack, but please stop again. Make sure that you have permission before trying to do any of this, even to a friend if you think it's a joke. Make sure you have permission to do so. Now I'm ready for that last step, which is step 5, and that is to start cracking. So let's get to this and look at how do we use John the Ripper. Alrighty, so I am in my Kali box, and I cannot see the screen, sorry. And there's a handy command called locate word list where you're able to look at all of the word lists that are in your Kali box. So as you can see, the long list of word lists that's already included in my Kali, the one that we'll be looking at is rocku.txt. I have already unzipped this, so I'm going to go ahead and take a look. I'm using the head command. I'm going to look at the first 10 contents here. As you can see, some of the common passwords we have here, the famous password, I love you, rock you, princess, and so much more. I'll go ahead and cap this so you can get an idea of all of the passwords that are in rocku.txt, which is quite an extensive list.
Could you turn the faces, please? Is that possible?
I can't see.
I think you can't see it.
Alright, so I had to clear this, and I'm going to look at the applications here. So I want you to pay attention to some of the categories in one particular, which is the password one. And the one that we'll be focusing on is John. So let's take a look at John with the John-H command. And here we're able to see all of the options here. It takes in the word John, some options, and then the required password file. Some of the options I want you to take a look at is word list. This is where we'll pass in our rocku.txt, so it's something I'll keep in mind to use. Also note the syntax. It's showing a series of equal signs. So that's one way to pass in an argument that it's showing me. The other option I want you to take a look at is -- users, where it's able to take in a user or a series of users. You could also invert the check by putting a dash in front to look at all users but this one. Groups also does the same for groups, and you can do a dash in front so you can invert that check as well. Alrighty, and the next one to look at is -- format. So although this is not required, but I really highly recommend that you incorporate the format to increase crack time. And if you're not familiar with the formats that John is able to handle, you're able to look at -- list equals formats to get an output of all of the formats that John is able to handle. That's quite a bit of formats that we see here on our screen. Some of the formats that I'm kind of looking at is MD5. I see MD5 there. I see Shaw. I see MySQL. I see quite a few of these. And speaking of hashes, well, we need to obtain a hash so we can use John. And let's just go over basically what hashes are about. You grab a plain text, you throw it into a hash function, and you get the hash text, the hash representation of your plain text. So let's go ahead and try to do this. I'm going to be using the hash function MD5. I have a password there that's called winter, and I want to get the hash of that. and it enters my plain text. The MD5 sun is my hash function, and I get the hash text, the hash representation of winter. Right, now let's throw this into John. But first I'll throw this into a file. So I'm going to go ahead and echo this hash that I got and throw it into a file. And I'll call this file target.txt. Awesome. Let's cat this, make sure it's there, fantastic. Now we can use John with our mock password file. Alright, so my command is going to be sudo john -- format, which is raw MD5, and then the password file, which is target.txt. Let's go ahead and run this. Wow, that was extremely fast. It was able to see that that hash that was plugged in was in plain text winter, which indeed it was. That was the password that we made. Let's make another dummy password and get the hash of that as well. And I'll call this password love. Just make this super simple. I got the hash. I'm going to throw this into the file, overwrite the one that I already had. Overwriting target.txt. Just make sure it's there, and it's there. Awesome. Great. Alright, so remember that John can take in a word list. If you haven't noticed already, the first time that we ran John, we did not pass in rawq.txt because John already has a word list pre-built in. But this time around, we'll be specifying rawq.txt. So I'll be using that word list option for John, which is -w. Pass in the path of rawq.txt. Alright, so I have John, my word list, my format raw MD5, and my file, which is target.txt. Let's go ahead and run this. Again, super fast. It was able to find out that yes, the password hash is love. Alrighty, so we're going to try something a little bit different. I created a file, which we'll check out here, called targets.txt, where it has a series of users in there. The format provided is the username, colon, and the hash, and this format is what John likes to take in, so that's the way that I wrote it in there. And I'm really curious to know what the password of admin is. And if you recall, in this file there are 3 users, right? But John has an option that I can target one specific user. So I'm going to go ahead and use that option, -users. Alright, change this to targets.txt, have my word list. I'm going to do -users and then equals admin. Oh, for some reason it's not working. I wonder why. Well, maybe the format is not MD5 after all. Well, if you're ever in doubt, there's a handy tool called #identifier already in our Kali box, which was able to output a prediction of what hash it thinks it may be. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the hash for admin, and I'm going to run #identifier. Alright, this is really interactive, super cool, so I'll paste this in here and I'll see what the prediction is. Okay, seems like there's a high probability that the hash is SHA-256. Alrighty, so I'll keep that in mind. It wasn't MD5 after all, it's SHA-256. So I'll update my format for it to reflect SHA-256. Awesome, so now this should work. I have my word list, my format SHA-256, my file, and the user I'm targeting, which is admin. So let's go ahead and run this, and bam, super fast again. The user admin was using the password admin. Alrighty. Well, John can definitely crack more than one password at a time. So far, we've only been doing one by one. So let's go ahead and crack the rest of those users in that file. All right, so I see my 2 additional users, which is target 1 and target 2. So I'll go ahead and crack the rest of it. All right. So all I did was delete the dash users option, and I'm going to run this. Alrighty. So it looks like we have here that the first password crack was luck777. The second one was pizza rules. I do agree that pizza rules, but not a great password. And do note as well that the username admin was not cracked here. Why? Because John is able to stash that for you and not repeat the process. Alrighty. So let's go ahead and recap some of the options that we're using for John. So the one thing I want you to take into consideration is this thing here, which is John-W wordless. You pass in the format, and then you have the required password file. We went over hash functions, which was MD5 and SHA-256. There's a lot more than that, so if you're not familiar with them, then go ahead and look them up online. And if you're ever in doubt about a hash, do look at hash-identifier, where it's able to give you a prediction of what hash something may be. We looked at a few options, which was the wordless, as we just talked about, targeting a user, and passing in the format. We used John with and without a wordless. So now we'll go into a demo attack scenario. Now that we know how John the Ripper works, we'll go ahead and check out how can we piece all this information together in a very, very basic example. So I have my target. My target is Amy. Amy is my boss. We both work at Dunder Mifflin. I'm extremely upset at Amy because she gave everyone on the team a raise except for me. So I am a disgruntled employee, and Amy, I'm out to get you. The first thing I'm going to look at, however, is her Instagram. I'm going to see if she has an Instagram, so I'm going to go ahead and look to see if I can find Amy, and bam, I find her Instagram. All right, I love Lucy, I love Stephen King, manager at Dunder Mifflin. Yep, that's her. Okay, hashtag horror. Okay. So let's look at the first picture. Oh, that makes sense. She named her puppy Lucy after I Love Lucy. Makes total sense now. Okay, the next photo says, man crush every day. Lucy, like, Amy, I didn't know that was a thing for you. Okay, so it was more than literature. I'm gonna look at the horror hashtag. All right, it looks like it's something I don't want to get into, so I'm gonna cancel that. Hashtag horror is not for me. Alrighty, so I got some information here. She's really heavy on Stephen King, hashtag horror. She loves her puppy Lucy. Alright, some information to take note. Now I'll scroll over and start looking at Facebook to see if I find her Facebook profile. I found her, it's public. Wow, a lot of information here. And we'll take a pause here, and I want to ask you all, do you see any identifiable information on her profile? Please raise your hand and list one out if you would like to.
Birthday.
Birthday? Anyone else? Any other takers?
Hometown.
Hometown? I got a hand over there.
I'll say
Hometown?
hometown.
Alrighty. So we have her name. Her name is definitely identifiable information. We have her birthday, her location. We have music interests. We even have mutual friends that she's connected to. So all this information I'll be taking into account. Alrighty, now I know that Amy loves to go to this coffee shop. She's always talking about it at work. I just happened to be sitting there, happened to be at the right place at the right time, and captured a password hash. She was trying to log into Spotify, and bam, I got that hash. So let's take a pause at all the information I have so far. So I've gathered some info from Amy through social media, through her Instagram. I gained some information to her Facebook. I now have the password hash of her Spotify account. And the next step is to create a word list to crack the password. And I'll be using John because that's what we're using so far. So I'm super excited about this. But remember, I love automation. Do you think I have the time to generate my own word list manually? No, I don't. Well, there is a tool out there that can do that for me. Once it loads. Alrighty, so out on GitHub there is a tool called CUP. It's super cool. It stands for Common User Password Profiler. So this tool is on GitHub. It's free, open to the public, and I have downloaded it, so I'll be using this. It allows me to put in a set of information that I've gathered about my victim into this tool, and it'll output a word list for me. So as you can see, I have my main file, which is cup.py. And I have that hash stored in the file creds.txt. That hash I got from her Spotify account. So let's go ahead and look at the options that CUP has to offer. And looking at the list, I think I'm interested in interactive mode. Yeah, make that easier for me. So I'll go ahead and run this file in interactive mode. All right, so it's prompting me with the first question here. Her first name, well, Amy. So that's easy, awesome. Surname, I don't have one. Nickname, well, sometimes at work we call her Ames, so Ames will be it. Birthday, well, we got that information from Facebook, so thank you, Amy, for providing that for us. Putting that in there. Alrighty, partner's name, nope, she's single and not ready to mingle. Child's name, she has none. Her pet, yep, she posted about it, Lucy. Okay, company name, Dunder Mifflin, that's where I work, the best company ever. Okay, keywords about my victim. Oh, I sure do want to put in some keywords. I learned a ton about her so far, so let's think. As you can see here, that any key term is delineated by a comma. So I'll put in her hometown, which was Chicago. What else can I think of? Stephen King, yeah, she said man crush every day, okay. If she reads Stephen King, then she likes horror. There was hashtag horror everywhere. Coffee, she always likes to go coffee. I mean, that's right, that's where I got her hash from, a coffee shop. Animals, she's into animals because she has a dog. I think that's enough information for now. It's asking if I want to include special characters, so yeah, I'll include special characters, make that better for me. Random numbers, I'll say no. The list will be too long. Let's see what we have with this. Alrighty, wow. We already have our word list. Is that insane what automation can do for you? So my word list is in amy.txt. I'm doing this in print mode so you can just get an idea of all of the combinations of passwords it was able to do just based on those key terms and all the information that it was prompting me to enter. Let's go ahead and look at it a little bit deeper. So I'll get into amy.txt. So this is in order. So we see some special characters there. I'll look at the tail, different variations of spelling her name. And we'll look in here just so you can get an idea of all of the passwords it was able to generate for us. That was a super easy lift for me for sure. See Stephen King in here. Lucy, yep, her dog, different iterations of that password, things I wouldn't even think of myself to do. And yeah, she liked punk music, so that's in there also. Cool. Alrighty. Great, so now let's see if we can use this with John. So remember, my hash is in creds.txt. That's the hash that I got. Check it out. Yep, my hash is in there. Awesome. Cool, now we can pipe this into John. But I'm not like 100% sure what that hash is, so hash dash identifier is my friend. I'm going to throw that in there. And bam, it says high probability is SHA-1. Cool, so that's where I'll be tossing it to John then. Alright, so we have a lot of information, and now I can use John. Cool, so my word list that I'm passing in is not going to be rocky.txt, it's going to be amy.txt. That's my specialized word list. Got my format, which is SHA, I have my password file, creds.txt. Let's run this, and bam, extremely fast. I found her password. It's cracked. Horror_1980, is it? Wow, that is amazing. I knew Amy wasn't that smart. Hashtag horror everywhere. Obviously, that's what she's thinking about, right? Okay, well, I have this password, and I want to do other things with it, though. I don't care about her Spotify account. Sure, I can look at her address and maybe get the last 4 digits of her credit card number, but I want to do even greater damage. And I'm familiar that she's a member of Bank of America, so I'm coming for you, Amy. She was using on her Spotify account her work email address, which is really, really bad, so I'm just going to assume she's using her work address for this as well. So what I'm doing here is called a credential stuffing attack, because I know of a username or of an email, and now I got an instance of one password. I'm going to try to now stuff this password into every account known to humanity. Well, at least that I know that she has. So that's what I'm doing here, credential stuffing. I'm going to stuff this password in here, and let's see if I'm in. I have spoofed my IP. There's no way that anyone can track that I did this. I'm on VPN. I'm ready to go. I'm a smart hacker. And bam, I am a smart hacker because Amy is not a great user. She did reuse her password, and bam, now I can do bad stuff. I can empty out her account. Jokes aside, though, that was a very basic example, but these things do happen in the real world. And now we'll transition to 5 ways to protect yourself. Alrighty, so please, if you haven't gotten this point so far, is to not include identifiable information in your credentials. Using passwords like I love Lucy because you own a dog called Lucy is something that is not going to help you in the long run. It's essential that you use password best practices. So there's been some research done at Carnegie Mellon University itself by Dr. Lori Cranner, where she has noted that passphrases are much more effective than complex passwords. An example of a passphrase is something like correct horse, battery, staple. And if you want to make it a little bit more difficult to crack, then do include special characters somewhere in the mix there. Another thing to note is that do not reuse passwords. As you can see, credential stuffing attacks are quite prevalent, so it's extremely important for you not to reuse a password. And length matters. The longer your password is, the harder it is to crack. And obviously, it's amazing because passphrases allows you to have longer passwords because now they're easier to remember. Another thing to take into consideration if you're still doubting the strength of your password is to go check out a password strength meter. One example of this is howsecureismypassword.net. And another thing I want you to notice on this slide is multi-factor authentication. In that survey I was quoting from earlier from the Digital Guardian, there was approximately 32.8% that did not know that what two-factor authentication even was. So it's extremely important to be aware that multi-factor authentication exists if you didn't know so already. An example of this is if I were to log in with my password, right, and then I get a code sent to my cell phone, and I'm able to input that code to then be authenticated in my account. So those are two forms of authentication. Something you know, which is your password, something you have, which is your phone. You can also use tokens, and duo and things like that. So definitely, if you're not familiar with multi-factor authentication, or if you don't have it set up, please do so, because even if someone was able to crack your creds, if they don't have multi-factor authentication set up, they're able to get in your account. But if you do, now you have extra layer of protection, which is awesome. And another thing is, man, is it hard to remember all these passwords? I mean, there's an account for everything. I get exhausted just thinking about it, and well, that's what password managers are for. So they help you keep track of all your passwords, and they can also auto-generate them for you so you don't have to remember all these complex passwords. You may ask yourself, well, Destiny, now I want to know, have I ever been cracked? Like, how can I protect myself? What accounts do I need to change my credentials? So there is this really handy website, if you're not familiar with, it's called haveibeenpawned.com. It's really amazing. So you're able to put in all of the email addresses that you have different accounts associated with, and press that enter button, and it will show you if you have been cracked and what accounts have been cracked. So usually these passwords and things like that are found on the dark web. Alright, so now let's recap. We want to ensure that based on the knowledge you've gained today, I'm sure you're going to expand it in a vast way, is to make sure you have permission though before you try to attempt to do any of this. Can't get that. I just cannot have you leave this and not understand that you need permission. I don't want to see anyone reported that they went to jail after a BSides bubble. But another thing to know is now you're a hacker. I mean, it's really easy to be a hacker. Anyone can be a hacker. And now you're able to see the lens of a hacker. Please take these measures to protect yourself. Don't use identifiable information. Don't reuse your passwords. Don't write them down. Now you know about passphrases and all these things that we've learned. That is the end of this talk. And if there aren't any questions, I would love to show a quick little video. Alrighty.
Had one password. It was our first password. We get nostalgically remember, and we used it for everything. Every time we joined another business, can I have your password? Yes, you can. That is my special word. And then companies started getting quite rude. You would put your password in, and it would go weak away to not my special word. And they're like, I'm sorry, but the internet has become very popular. We need to strengthen your password. And businesses would insist we must have from you a capital letter. I'm sorry, we will not be accepting passwords anymore unless it contains at least one capital letter. And we all momentarily considered our options before deciding to capitalize the first letter of our password. And for a period of time that was fine, but the internet became even more popular, and then businesses started saying, I'm afraid you cannot join unless you have at least one capital letter and at least one number. Again, less than half a microsecond's consideration before we collectively decided you should be getting the number one in the end of my capitalized password. And for a period of time, this was acceptable until a whole new, unexpected, and exciting dawn emerged. A world of special characters. We didn't even know what they were. And businesses would say, we need a capital letter. We need a number, but we will also require a special character. And we clicked on the button, please, can I have some examples? of these special characters which you now insist upon. And we perused them. There they are. I had no idea these characters were so special until all of our eyes stopped upon the exclamation mark. You're coming with me. Which we input at the end of our now capitalized password just after the 1. And it's at this moment that everybody at the London Palladium is thinking, I should probably change my password.
Alrighty, thank you so much.